I'm a structured person. So if I like something I follow up on, I start from the beginning, And that's a key word I want to pause on, Just the structure just the structure in a fucking project, right? All of this fucking innovation, but we can't stay true to honoring how you honoring how another person would like their shit, and people professing rhetoric how that could be done, and them having low-key hypocrisy in that shit. So that's the difference between, approach and structurality. And obviously replications will do their thing. So I got a lot of pages of notes. Let me see. So this is welcome to the new moon in Pisces, Negentropic Human Design 77, intuitive abstraction, abstract intuition, seeing linear natures in forgotten non-linear natures, and adapting to the non-linear nature of the universe and how we cling uniquely to the linear natures. So I don't know how long this is going to last. I have a lot of pages of notes. It's kind of rigid, but let me just show you the template. 6 months ago, in New Moon in Virgo, I did something very, very similar to this. I'll show you the chart right now. And I refrained myself from doing it because I just felt like the ordering of it was just really like golden. And I just wanted to keep it like, in the ethers or whatever. But when I was working at a grocery store last year, there was these customers coming up to me and saying, wow, we're really getting, like, this is a for real testimony that I experienced. We're for real getting like encouragement and assistance from the app that you made. And I was like, okay, you can't tell me directly. What do you mean by that? So obviously what I deduced was the open source ideas, someone made something out of it, and it's just in the ethers right now. But this is like this is for a higher project. And obviously that's what happens when you're open sourcing it. People could just, do what they do. And obviously I'm not trying to be hypocritical with like anything. I'm just trying to flow with it. So let me show you the chart right here. This is NHD 77. Okay, oops. So here's the chart. Now let's pause for a second. I have like 7 pages of notes, more or less. I'll count that right now. So let's pause for a second. This is the chart. What does this chart mean? And I got to act kind of swift generally before, a disturbance happens. But so this is abstract intuition, intuitive abstraction. It's recognizing a natural hierarchy where things aren't necessarily above or below each other. It's just seeing how different things have their own exemplary significance, and they're exemplified like honorific energies of prominence, pretty much. So I chose this order, and starting from like bottom to top and stuff, I chose Mercury as the first point of relevancy because within these notes and within the intuition, he's the first quote unquote gatekeeper, end quote, before we want to move into any other district or project or agency or project or thing, right? Because it's up to our nervous system, Mercury, and the way we communicate and our cerebral thinking cortex, etc., intuitively saying it, for us to move on to the next project. We can't function without a regulated nervous system, proper communication, and us getting and earning and gaining the insight to know what we need to do to move on to the next level. So we put that to the side, we put that to the curve. So the first level is Mercury, within this new moon ceremony, and it low-key always is, So let me just I've done this in the past, right? So Mercury is the order of the solar system, right? And what is the solar system? It's a body of a different, celestial being that has different contexts. And obviously within a 2017 blog in which I explained things to be in such a way where, this story and this project, it's akin to a puzzle. Pieces are missing. And since pieces are missing, it's up to, us to go through the challenges and how different gods preserve their different shit, hide their different shit, and other things just block that shit, right? So the thing that I'm saying here is there's many pieces that are missing, right? So since we know that there's many pieces that are missing, we could use that knowingness of pieces are missing as a different type of reference point. But that whole different reference point of a presentation, it has way, way more like things and details in an insight I could just give and profess right now. And the insight that I want to give and profess right now is the celestial being that we're understanding as a solar system, the admin cadmin body. There's different types of admin cadmin bodies. And on the underground, there's a particular presentation where I speak on the different contexts of the admin cadmin body. And I know I've said this a lot of times before too, just generally saying it. But I'm gonna and I had to process it a lot because it was kind of getting amnesified or whatever. It was kind of getting blurred. The memory was getting blurred of okay, how is there different types of admin cadmin bodies? Well, for one, and I explain it way deeper, but I'm gonna simplify. I'm gonna give a simple, swift insight on how there's different types of solar systems, admin cadmin bodies. So the different types of solar systems is one that is more receding, one that is more emanating. So within that solar system, you can look at the solar system as having a different tier of a macro solar system. So there's a macro receding solar system, and there's a macro emitting solar system. And those solar systems within their different gizmos and gadgets and cycles and patterns of celestial, interactions and confluxions and whatnot, that macro and receding and emitting solar system, they have a particular type of contraction within the gizmos and gadgets and cycle mechanisms within the other planets and their functions. The abstract intuition, no one's necessarily higher or lower than another. They're just doing their thing, So the planets that you could see them as, they don't necessarily have to be personal. They're just doing their own mechanism, they're just doing their own thing, right? So simultaneously it could be personal, but it's not just that. It's they're doing their whole own different thing, right? And obviously I have other notes here to explain what I'm saying right now. There's a different key insight note of just saying, okay, the planets are personal, but at the same time, they're not personal. They're not personal because they're literally Pluto's literally resetting this shit, So let me get back on track here. So the different contexts of the solar system, the admin cadmin body, which there's a different underground video that explains that. And those are for the real genuine partnerships, recognizing the corrupt archetypes, with a different tier of fucking liberation, because that different tier of liberation, it's giving me the allowance to say what I need to say without getting, totally fucking, totally just, overcame, right? Because if someone doesn't like what I say, then they're going to do something about it, but they themselves have their own shit to take care of. But let me get back to this thing right here. So the different contexts of the solar system is there's a macro receding one, there's a macro emitting one, and then those things contract to make a micro receding one and a micro emitting one, right? And then they have their own proxy expressions thereof, because Rahu is a different context of the head of the solar system, respectively, in a different micro context. and K2 is like the different like tail end of a different context of a solar system, most respectively. But obviously, I would have to explain that context, which I already did in the underground one, and I'm just gonna keep going. So this is a rigid presentation. Whoever's here, I'm kind of gonna be like that, 10th grade geometry teacher that is just kind of like has a vibe that's just kind of like it's kind of like it's just kind of rough pretty much. So it's just kind of rough. So I chose this order. So let me just explain the order real quick. If you look on my Archangel Umbriel community board, there is a post, there is a song I shared from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And, within my interactions and engagements within customers, people will rep the number 42. And as they're repping the number 42, they'll explain to me where that came from. And it came from that movie, right? And as it came from that movie, as I do my own downloading and processing, I'm sure they're using it in a different way. But as I did my own downloads and processing and my walking, 4-2, that's the Earth and the Moon. So why not like just see like why not like for a new moon ceremony? And you know what's funny? Like right here, I wrote it. I actually wrote 4-2 first. I wrote 4-2-1 south node, north node, then 5, and then 0. So obviously, like intention, first intention, I actually wanted to do 4-2. And I wanted to start off with 4 because the Earth itself, it's a very sophisticated order of an ecosystem magnet that churns the moon ladle and the moon's precession of cycles for the moon to charge and be kind of like titillated and circulated and kind of energy circulated for it to like kind of like contain its own bearing for how it swirls and magnifies its own energy charge. So I'm going to stop flowing and I'm just going to be really rigid and read these 7 pages of notes. I haven't started with the notes yet. So obviously my style is a little rigid, right? So let me just explain the order. So the planets are in the signs. Obviously people could aspect them however they want, You could aspect Mercury and pretty much any planet to see how Mercury is communicating with all of them. And Mercury is like, the head of the solar system, respectively, in advanced metaphysics, right? Because he's the recent caretaker who organized it recently. So Mercury like has game on all of these things, right? But like who's to say like if Mercury could be capped, right? So I put Mercury first because he's the main organizer of the solar system. I put the Earth second because that's our unconscious way, and that's just where we're at on the unconscious state. That's how we're unconsciously crafting things. We're unconsciously crafting things through the Earth. And then obviously the new moon is right there. So let me drink some grape juice real quick. I'm being really rigid with this presentation, and I kind of get like I just like for me to like speak in front of a lot of people, I need to have like a lot of prep, I need to have a lot of prep. So thank God I have some liquids right here. And then obviously like there's a dual aspect of this new moon ceremony, because when the Pisces is in like the first day of Pisces season, that's the new sun. I kind of explain it differently. And then the new moon, it's kind of like a whole different swift, fluid, emotional, unconscious, genetic movie that our individual self is part of a family. And those families are a part of different families. And somewhere along the genetic lineage, certain families just wanted a war, right? Or just were at odds, you know? Okay, so let me see. So and I'm doing this because I realize, like, even though it's rough and rigid and raw, I feel like it's a pivotal change for myself. You know, I'm kind of doing it for myself. So obviously, all kinds of criticism could be given to me, right? You know, all the criticism across the board could be given to me. Like criticism you wouldn't even think would imagine, because you're not necessarily processing other people's archetypes, you know. But if you process other people's archetypes, then that's what it is. Let me start with there's so much notes I want to read, but let me just get more structured with it. So pretty much Mercury. Let me just go bullet point mode. Let me just go bullet point mode and just slang them, sling them, slang them, strike them, straight them, straight them, state them, ladle them. And I use the word ladle in a recent sentence. So for the people coming up into this presentation, this is a class setting structure. And within this class setting structure, I'm reading from a textbook. I'm showing you a diagram. It's best to start from the beginning, and it's best to not interrupt as I'm doing this, but like that's a particular type of resiliency that we have to adapt, you know? So like me, like, and everybody's we're all working with the elements. So we have a unique resiliency. Like I might not have, like, you know, some earth resiliency just might not be there for me, you know? So that's kind of what I'm working on. I'm working on some type of matrix resiliency, earth resiliency. And the air resiliency, it can only help the emotional resiliency so much, because all of us have our blind spots. So let me just bullet point this shit real quick. I'm trying to bullet point this shit. I don't know why I'm like, so pretty much. So I started with Mercury because that's the first gatekeeper. The second gatekeeper, Earth, that is pretty much our unconscious crafting, and where the Earth is being kind of like, you know, being like what constellation is supplying the Earth, and we don't necessarily know it. It's kind of like an aquarium in darkness, you know, or it's kind of like a plantation in darkness. That's the Earth, and the Earth is second because we're preparing early for the full moon charge. So when the moon cycle is done doing its thing, when the full moon hits, we're going to be more embracive of it, because we're going to know how the unconscious is responding to the genetic traits of the moon cycles, the genetic traits being affiliated with the moon respectively, right? And then the moon is in the third stage because it's the new moon. The fourth stage is the sun. What is being revealed? You know, what are we getting? Like, what are we being provoked from? The fifth stage is Pluto. So I'm on I have 7 pages of notes, and I'm still on the introduction page. I'm like on page 0 for some reason. So stage 5 is Pluto, a key. So my prediction with this Pluto and Aquarius is this is future jet wars. You know, this is just like there's going to be like advanced jet wars in the future. And then stage 6 is like after, like, so I'm reading off from 7 pages of notes, and I'm still on page 0 for some reason. And then after, and like this was an intuitive kind of build. This doesn't necessarily have to be the order for your new moon ceremony, but this is just how it came out. So after Pluto, after working with the sun, what's being revealed, after knowing, and obviously I'm going to break down more notes just, explaining the order. I'm just explaining the order right now. I'm just explaining the order of like, okay, Mercury, first gatekeeper, second gatekeeper, the unconscious, third gatekeeper, just for this context, the new moon ceremony, sun's there, Pluto, let's embrace for the reset. And then I'll read the notes after, because after I read the notes, it'll kind of like accumulate more. Then south node, where's the note for the south node? What was left behind, and north node, what's ahead, what's being meticulously crafted within the artificial AI sector and the spiritual sector. Rahu, north node. 7, Neptune, the grand illusion and the natural inversion of God. And then after 7 is 6, Venus, harmony for humans and biting the apple of good and evil and knowledge, and seeing how there could be harmonic wars. And those harmonic wars, the joke could be taken too far, right? Venus. But Venus is still like kind of reflecting, just kind of reflecting the evolution of the gods casually. And I feel like when planets are in retrograde, I feel like they finished a Grand Prix racetrack, and now they're kind of offset, and they're kind of like, their bifurcation is kind of like, it's kind of like splitting apart, and it's kind of creating something of a mirage where they're at a higher elusive point, or they're at a higher point rather than a nearby radius in the constellation that they're in. So it's like they're finishing, like when the planets are in retrograde, I feel like they're finishing a race, and like the mini battle or the mini game is kind of over. And that mini battle and that mini game, they're just kind of like, okay, the game's over. Now everyone has to like go back to like, when you're playing a video game, and sometimes you have to go to the bathroom, sometimes you have to go get snacks, right? Sometimes you have to go get, you just have to like exit the video. You have to exit the video game, right? When you're playing video games, you're not 100% fully obsessed in the video game, right? So I feel like a retrograde is like, like taking a break on the video game, right? That's what I feel like a retrograde is. It's like you're taking a break on the video game, and you're waiting till the game starts over again. The game is at a pause. That's what the retrogrades mean to me. Like they could be at their highest point within their cycles of the constellation, and it appears that they are more farther away, and there's a unique standstill. So I'm just going to keep flowing through it. And then after Venus is, what do you call that? There's Jupes. Jupes. For Jupes, I wrote the keynote for Jupes, and I'm still on page 0 of 7 out of my notes. For some reason, I put Jupes as high tide, reaching, philosophical magic, the magic of philosophy, rudimentary philosophy, events, surface level events that could connect to a deeper, meaning if you have the resonance to go to the next level of the events that you're partaking in. And then seeing, a certain type of like pinnacle and climax of that, Jupiter. And obviously within this order, it could be changed, but this is just my new moon ceremony. After Jupiter, Mars just went direct in Cancer. So it's kind of like the Russian dolls. Shout out to the predecessors. Someone could say there's a detriment they could be at detriment or at fall within a certain sign. But what if there's a niche portal, a certain as within, as without portal, where there's an anomaly where Mars is detriment in Cancer, right? Or fallen in Cancer or whatever. But what if it's at such a unique niche spot in the I Ching sector that it kind of like, it found a magic portal, and now he gets more strength within being in the sector, because Mars is in gate, let me see, 53 in Cancer. So Cancer is bearing gate 53, and gate 53 is a root gate. So Mars likes to be in the root. So there's a niche anomaly within Mars being in Cancer. So it's about temperaments colliding, Obviously Mars could be like, detriment in Cancer, but within that, it's not all bad. A certain temperament element within a certain temperament element found a lucky, unique niche spot, and now it's recharging in the root chakra. So a lot of these planets, so this is what the fates are doing. They're sitting us down. It's not that one being is in control of all of it. No, the fates are bringing us back to where we need to be. And the people who have arrogance, that doesn't necessarily mean shit. It's not necessarily clarity. It doesn't really mean anything. Like the arrogance at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean anything, but it could if that's what you want it to be. So the character is being created from emotional egos and tribes voicing their concerns with the system. Pisces, Sun in Pisces, and the godhead for Pisces is Mithra. So it's like human design is very abstract and complex in one sense, because I'm just we're all kind of doing the same shit. We're all going through the rings of the matrix, right? The quote unquote rings of the matrix, right? So like no one can really judge me at the end of the day, but you could though. I don't really give a fuck though. But so after Mars and I'm still on page 0 of my notes. So after Mars, I put Saturn, and obviously the order could be way different. I just put the order. I put Mercury first. It was supposed to be 4, 2, 1. So after Mars, Saturn's there. Now after we go through and I could have put Mars at the first level or the second level or the third level. I just put it right there because that was the intuitive flow within Pisces. That's where it's at within the Pisces feel of it. But I put Mars after Jupiter because we have to take care of Mercury shit. We have to take care of unconscious shit. We have to take care of Moon, Sun, and relative Pluto shit. North Node and South Node doing their things. Neptune, Venus, and Jupiter. Pisces rulers, Pisces family, Pisces quote unquote esoteric shot callers. Neptune, Venus, and Pisces, and we're all subsidiaries of them. I'm not necessarily saying I'm anything, but all of us are connected to all of these lineages, point blank, period. So after the South Node and North Node of the Moon, then we're focusing on Neptune, Venus, and Jupiter. After that Neptune, Venus, and Jupiter, after that Pisces fill, after we get that Pisces fill, then we could focus on some what the fuck is going on, within the tides of the war. And then after we finish that war shit, because that's very concerning and daunting within life, then we could go back to Saturn. And I'm still on page 0. And after we go to Saturn, then we could go to Chiron, the fallen state, the fallen consciousness, that which has fallen, the quote unquote most fallen aspect of us, after the differentiation of mechanics of different aspects of self opposing each other and getting along, subsidiaries or no subsidiaries, and the fallen state has manifested itself as something which is all of us. It's just a different energy state. It's not saying Chiron is this ET or that ET. No, it's a state of consciousness that we all are, and that it's an insignia of an energetic state that we could be. So a lot of I've read a lot of these I've just seen a lot of this evidence of this Sumerian shit, and some of it's out of context, So and then after Chiron, I put Lilith Poo. Lilith Poo is professional dark magic, respectively. And then Uranus is the secret observer. So let me get off of page 0. So everything is in reverse in such a way because in a different time context, you could say that the seasons are going from Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sag, Scorp, Libra to the first, right? So if that were to be the case, then the whole Pisces constellation in an as above level, it's what it really is. It's the early spiritual physical labs of creation for the different many different species, you know. So it's different fucking gods, like in their different tiers and contexts of themselves, ruling the fucking aquarium, Pisces. It's the whole fucking aqua kingdom. So if you go from 12th house to 11th house, it's Jupiter and Neptune land, the early spiritual physical labs of aquatic creation, Pisces, to 11th house, the early material solidification labs to the early human origins millions of years ago, Aquarius. And then the different rulerships of how, you know, who's overseeing the Aquarius sector then after, but like I'm speaking about it in a context of a different as above within a different time. And this whole zodiac shit is just a reflection as below of some shit that already was. So so astrology in essence it's just a reflective tool of what was. Oh God, let me see. So now I'm barely going out of and then Pluto, relevant death in nature. So I'm barely finishing page 0 or page 1. So let me count my pages. I think I have 6 pages left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess I have 5. Let me drink this grape juice. So this is a rough, rigid presentation. Whew. So this is a rough, rigid presentation of some advanced astrology if you really fucking listen. And obviously in the professional sector, you know, I won't cuss like that, but within the notes of it, now since I started from the bottom to the top, now I might as well start, you know, just very quickly. I'm just going to quickly run through it, you know, because I could hear myself and sometimes I don't want to be too rigid, you know. This grape juice hits differently. It just hit, and you know what? So I'm gonna put it back on this fucking. So I'm just gonna run through this real quick because I don't want to waste anybody's time. So Uranus, 11th house, 8th house, the shins of a certain technical solar system, and the 8th house, pure tantric work, uncorrupted lust, confusion around 8th house and 11th house. Uranus being in gate 23, I casually dubbed it as extreme spirituality, even energy exploitation, you know, sifting the chaff from the wheat kind of shit, you know. The highest truths are here. What will we do with them? What laws and lawyers don't give a fuck about spiritual sabotage? Where are we at within the real universal process? So that's Uranus right there for this new moon ceremony in Taurus. And obviously wherever Taurus is in your house, you could apply that, you know, that extreme spirituality, that because like extreme spirituality, it's following up on non-duality. And within that non-duality, quote unquote, the whole, you know, not good, not bad obstacles will be what they will be. Now I spoke on Uranus very quickly and briefly, and obviously I could have went way, way harder. And Uranus, gate 23, he's in the throat center. So we're actually the whole thymus gland and the whole if that's the correct gland. Or the whole, like, the whole throat chakra, it's getting, it's interfacing low key with how the solar system is receiving new light from a different transit of an area. So Uranus within the human design body graph, us being the microcosm solar system, it's activating in the throat chakra itself. And me just expressing this is proof of that, more amplified proof of just kind of sharing insight and wisdom, knowledge, air, us coming together, fire, communal, us coming out of our families, water, to like, come to this point, we're all connected supposedly. And then, within the good karmas for us to like not be in bondage, earth, we're more or less going to get that Uranus in the throat activation, right? Uranus and Taurus, right? And within that Uranus and Taurus, the whole like visual prowess of life itself is going to be changed from extreme spirituality. Now let me go to Lilith in gate 50. And I just did a very brief, swift keynote on this shit, right? So Lilith, lineage of Brahma's wife's shadow side lineage, the hive itself, technical extraterrestrial magic, deep extraterrestrial magic. The mother protects what it will, and the mother will eliminate what it will on her volition, and the humans can't understand that. So Lilith in this gate 50, the cauldron, follow the basic law. That's a reflection of an unknown as above. The feminine shadow queen entity seeing through the depth of the universal story. Lilith in gate 50, the spleen. We will know what we have to do to survive in the fucking galaxy, perhaps. Lilith in sacral, gate 50, the cauldron. We get to be endowed, like in these universities. These are just the microcosm reflections of the hive queen's mother's, of her, like, of how these like deep dark goddesses, how they preserve the material shit in a way we can't understand, Now I'm going to go to Chiron. Chiron's in gate felt 42. Chiron's in Chiron, the fallen state, is in increase. For some reason, this is just an intuitive thing, but the song that's coming to me is like, I don't even want to shout out that song, but like if Chiron, the fallen state, is in gate 42 increase, what's going to be increasing is casualties, dead people, the dead, like, like psychosis is going to be increased, dementia is going to be increased, implants, the spiritual implants. I casually talk about it in a different video. The dark matrix, unknown spiritual contrast. Why did God put such hard challenges in life? Chiron in gate 42. Research, brain damage research, mental health research, psychological states research, new testimonies in these fallen states of consciousness research. Chiron in gate 42, Aries. The kingdom has been infiltrated. Chiron in Aries. It's kind of like Troy. It's like kind of like Troy and the wooden horse. That's what this Chiron is coming to me. This Chiron in Aries is like Troy and the wooden horse. That has already been doing its thing, But for us, now that we get to recognize it, that's when we get the chance to start healing. So I went from Uranus to Lilith to Chiron. Now I'm going to read the Saturn notes, my intuitive notes for Saturn. So Saturn, what is Saturn? Waiting for fucking liftoff is my intuitive note. The knees, Capricorn, right? And then obviously seventh house exalted in Libra. So, but Saturn more so Capricorn, prominent, right? So the knees itself being more prominent in the knees. So Saturn is waiting for liftoff, halting, stopping, karmic work, suspension, termination, spiritual data received for karmic judgments and allegations. Saturn. So this is my intuitive spiel on it. And within that, Saturn is in gate 22, grace. So could we have grace within the hard weight? Could we have grace within us getting expelled? Could we have understanding if our kid got expelled? Maybe that shit got hacked and the allegation was false, but the Saturn matrix will terminate it. Like there could be false terminations, but not necessarily all the time, but there could be. So how are you going to handle it? The grace within waiting for liftoff, Saturn in Pisces. And you know what's funny? I'm like, I just explained the order and the keynotes and the insights. I'm not necessarily explaining the aspects yet, you know? And Saturn is in a solar plexus gate. So we're going to really have to stomach these hard judgment systems. We're going to have to look at that. Look at the feelings of devastation that are after effect of the hard, quote unquote, corruption, end quote, within the Saturn matrix. Saturn in gate 22. So having grace to work on yourself, right? Having the grace to work on yourself. Having the grace, if you got wrongly terminated, how are you gonna do you have the good physical merits and karma to write an appeal? And is it easy? If it's not easy, the innovation is just being fake rhetoric shit, or your case is it's not convenient for you to write an appeal because there's other obstacles that are happening, right? Yeah, leave the comments for after so I could so I'm just going to keep going with my presentation. So I explained the order from bottom to top. Now I'm explaining the keynote insights from top to bottom. And I'm not necessarily explaining the aspects. I explain the retrogrades and I explain the different contexts of the solar system. And obviously in the future, it will be way more clear, more insights, and more just more summaries of what I'm saying, you know, because obviously this is intuitively raw. So now I'm coming from Saturn to Mars. Now I'm gonna and this was just a quick one, right? I could have went way more with it. So now Mars is in gate 53. What does that mean? Oh, I didn't take notes on the Mars in gate 53. Fuck. Or fudge cakes, fudgesicle, rocket pops, rocket ice cream ship, ice cream trucks. So Mars in gate 53, root, instinct, the mission to be nourished, kill or be killed, protect your creation. Don't go too far with protecting your creation, maybe getting, bloodlusty. I don't know, Mars, but somehow when Mars leans towards the higher order could justify Mars perhaps. And Mars could be justified perhaps because it's a living thing. And obviously we all have our own expression of the Mars where it could get out of hand, right? So the channels in the human design body graph for harmonic circuitry to be achieved, and I'm just intuitively saying this for the critics, the polarity gate possibly assists the sparking to recognize the circuitry other side of the connection when a channel or when a gate connects to another gate to create a channel. The gates that have their polarities when they have a particular type of fusion and recognition and recollection, that's what could make the circuitry fulfilled all the more for the channel. So pause that, replay that for that intuitive insight. And I know this is rough, guys. I know this is rough. So now, let's see. So now I'm on Venus poo. Where's my notes for Venus poo? Fudge. I don't know. I don't want to be too rushy. Maybe I'll start from, I started the keynotes from, I started roughly explaining the order. Then I started explaining the order of the keynotes from the top to the bottom, but I'm just going to go back to Mercury. No, I'm gonna keep going. No, I'm just okay. Just read the notes. Read the notes. Okay, now Jupiter poo, Jupy poos. Jupiter in gate 25. Let me switch hands. Maybe I'll switch hands. Wait, Jupiter. Wait, I didn't go to Jupiter. So Jupiter, being aware of grounding our dream body in the future for this gate. Jupiter in gate 35, how that speaks to me is being aware of grounding our dream body in the future. Jupiter, heavenly kingdoms, work there within our resetted new human, expanding the human genome project, the philosophy of God's connecting to humans itself, patterns of arousal to de-arousal, seeing who and how our story and process is supported or not. Jupiter in gate 35, Gemini. So we're expanding this, this technical communication of human intelligence and non-human intelligence. And both of those, human intelligence and non-human intelligence, they connect to the gods. So I'm not showing you my notes. I'm just showing you the graph. So I'm reading the notes, and obviously may this get edited in the future. But I just read the note. What does Jupiter in gate 35, what does Jupiter in Gemini mean to me from the human design lens? I just read it, rewind it. And now I'm going to keep going. Jupiter in gate 35 is also in the throat chakra. So the gate 35 Gemini, it's connected to the throat chakra as well. So it's very, we're receiving the communication low key on a suppressed micro percentage level. We're receiving what could be our path so we could kind of do our, so we could do the work that we want to do, to honor and recognize these different glorious parts of self, because quote unquote, all is the self, end quote. So now I'm on Venus, gate 21, biting through. Gate 21, heart chakra, Venus and Aries, misunderstanding the feminine, taking a stand to heal themselves no matter the cost, needing justice, needing to see evidence, who's there for me. That's what Venus in Aries is saying to me. And since Venus is in retrograde, we could be taking a break on that. That could be at a standstill. So after Venus is in retrograde, then we could be more gung-ho with okay, the justice system is a component to the matrix that helps me grow up and feel good, right? It's a component to the human evolving, and Venus being the ruler of Libra and Taurus. So Venus in Aries, Venus bringing that retrograde energy into Aries, into gate 21, a lot of misunderstandings could happen because we're not taking into consideration other people's needs. Like in our life, we're not doing that. So now, after Venus, now I'm on Neptune because I'm starting from top to bottom. So now, after Venus, now I'm at Neptune, gate 25. And excuse me for this raw, rigid presentation. In the future, hopefully it's more clean, right? And in the past, I've been more expansive with the notes. With the key insights, I've been more expansive in the past. I was just more swift this time around. So this is a class setting. It's quote unquote communal, end quote. And I say quote unquote communal, end quote, because obviously not everyone's community friendly like that. But I'll let the fates do their fucking shit, right? So Neptune, the lineage of gods, the natural hierarchy converted to within quote unquote God's will, end quote, to artificial hierarchy and inversion, end quote. Perhaps, disclaimers, that's it's a theory. We came about how we came about. Advanced reflections, G center, the seat of the soul, origins of Brahma. Neptune in the G center, Neptune in gate 25. And now, this is hella raw. I don't know why. North Node conjunct Mercury in gate 36. Gaining knowledge of future productions, the anomaly, artificial tech production agendas fully communicated and understood by the anomaly, because Mercury is conjunct North Node in gate 36. So since it's conjunct, that's the anomaly. We get to know about this fucking shit. We get to know about future productions. We get to know about the nervous system needing intimacy and how that's perverted and how that's inverted. People are intimate with perverted tech, sex robots, Rahu and Pisces. All of the fucking, all these weird dark robots are going to come out of the closet, perhaps, which is already fucking happening. That's Rahu and Pisces, and Mercury conjunct Rahu and Pisces. We casually get to know about that, and we got to know if that even works for us, if that's even a thing. That doesn't even have to be a thing, but it's there, because Rahu and Pisces, it's making all of these artificial tech production, inventions, Rahu being affiliated with, technology and, future prophecies, that's affiliated with the Pisces energy. So like a bunch of obviously we don't even this is just, all of this shit is just scratching the surface. It's just the tip of the iceberg. And Earth is in gate 40, heart center, micro soul being micro soul self. The Earth is the micro soul self. Earth is in gate 40, micro soul self. Find yourself with others, Earth cycles, genetic temperament. The abstractness isn't really applauded or popularized. It's everything. So all of this it's abstractualized. So it's the alikeness to the abstractness, because this whole thing is the whole new moon and the new sun in Pisces, it's about genetic temperament. It's about getting along with your family. But if you're opposite of your family, then what's disapplauded is the lack of a likeness. So since there's a lack of a likeness, there's abstractness. And that abstractness isn't necessarily popularized or applauded. It's just rhetoric. So the Earth being in Virgo, gate 40, it's about finding yourself. It's about you're alone even when you're with other people. You're alone even when you're in the classroom setting. You're alone when you're with your family. You're alone somehow on a deep spiritual level when you're at the concerts, when you're at the EDM rave festivals. You're still going to be alone in your own life circuit. You're going to be alone. And it's up to you to see what's helping your heart chakra, your will, to help you get through life. And to see how like people that are saying like everybody's welcome, that's not necessarily true. But it could be though, you know. Let me see. Okay, I read this note. Let me see, I read that note. Okay, I read this note. I read this note. I read that note. Ooh. Okay, here it is right here. Uh-oh. So let me read the note for the sun. And where did that Pluto note go? Oh, here it is. So I got 2 more pages to read. And then I'm out skis. I'm out skis. So now. So I read Swift Intuitive Keynotes from Ernest all the way to the North Node. Oh, I didn't take the note on the South Node, or did I? So Pluto, this is just an intuitive thing. Pluto and Aquarius, a new transformation and reset and decrease. The key word for Pluto and Aquarius is reserves. Will the reserves reach their plateau for some reason? Will the reserves in a bigger spiritual complex? Once the reserves of the energy and the energy of the reserves, once they're all gone and our satisfaction is all out of satisfaction, who do we follow up on to reimburse that satisfaction? So this is the real universal spiritual game. The reserves are finite within the material game. So since Pluto is in Aquarius, it's like even the archons themselves, their reserves, depending on their allotment, are still finite. And Pluto is going to reset the whole decrease mechanism within Aquarius. So Pluto and Aquarius is the whole reset. It's a fucking whole universal fucking reset. And 99% of these spiritual content creators are just regurgitating shit. And that's and for me to say that truth, it's a good thing. Because the truth is the thing that heals you. So Pluto and gate 41, the reserves, the decrease in reserves rehauled. The starting and the introduction of the reserves and the energy supplies being reinvented or being resetted so they could be reinvented. So the age of paradise, it's not going to happen for like another 3 years. There's still a lot of wars. A lot of people got to clear their shit up. A lot of skeletons in the closet. A lot of this new age spiritual content, it's a lot of fluffy rhetoric, and it's kind of like it's not really helping in the long game. They're not understanding the dualities of the matrix. They don't put disclaimers, and they're misleading you, and that's not okay. So now, oh, excuse me. So Pluto and gate 41, the monk in the cave dying to be reborn in a spiritual war. Possible future predicaments of world war, a different world war, jet wars, because there's technical innovation that still needs to do its thing. Spirit itself, the spirit of the fates, letting you know your place. Because Pluto's in the throat and the polarity gate of this gate 41 is the root. So we're going to need to really sit down, recharge ourselves with the necessary Pluto knowledge to brace ourselves for the next 3 years realistically. I got one more page of notes. And after these page of notes, maybe I'll intuitively aspect them, you know. So let me read this last page of notes. Sun, energy from family. Moon, genetic traits from family. Gate 37, solar plexus. So there's a exemplified energy of sun being a solar plexus gate, you know. There's like a conjunction energy. All archetypes and introduction presented in family traditions, particularly for bigger families. Heir to throne type of shit. Carry my legacy type of shit. Find your mate type of shit. No choice, we want to expand type of shit. How will we expand? The extreme magnification complex of the gods. So people are just concerned with mundane pathways. That's what this new moon and the new sun in Pisces is telling me. And here's the real big ass fatty titty kicker. Knowing this rudimentary knowledge of quote unquote human design, end quote, and I say quote unquote because I'm way more abstract and like intuitive than any of them, respectively. But to know this rudimentary knowledge is just so we can know how the surface level matrix functions, so we could go beyond the bondage of this matrix, and we can know how the rudimentary matrix works. I'm not saying the matrix is good or bad. I'm just saying this is what the surface level program is. And if we know the surface level program, that's the key to unlock the bondage in the long-term shit. So I'm not saying anybody should follow me or not follow me. This is for my own self-intuitive work. And the ancient critics could do whatever the fuck they want energetically, right? Or not. And that energy will be reciprocated within higher mechanics. So within the new moon in Pisces, it's like within all the archetype, there's a light introduction of quote unquote all the archetypes presented, particularly in big families, and those big families more or less reflecting in society. We're dipping our toes to see all the archetypes in society, but we kind of more or less know them. Pisces season energy. So within those family traditions, the Costa Nostra is going to do what they're going to do. And we're all just reflections more or less of each other. But that doesn't justify if we're balanced or not. So within the hard 3D matrix, some people will want to sabotage your shit. Their inner hate and their inner disgust, they want to sabotage your shit. And they're in a certain universal paradox, they're in a new level of spiritual elementary school on an overall level, mind you. People are blinded by just the rudimentary shit, the amnesia of 3D matrix. So I read all the fucking notes. I got through all the fucking planets except the South Node for some reason. Like I didn't write a keynote, intuitive keynote on the South Node. But the South Node being in Virgo is like, okay, we all get it. Like we all get it. Like the sexual education and the lust, we could like, it's just a back burner for our own real desire of how we just want to be better, how we want to be better ourselves. And that, sexual education, it doesn't have to be everything, but I'm not saying, but like if that's your thing, then that's your thing, you know. But I'm just saying like that whole South Node in Virgo, it's like, you know, the whole porn industry in its affiliation with obsoleteness and detrimental, standard, law and government. That shit is just that's like roadkill shit, in the bigger picture. South Node and Virgo, like the obsolete fucking way of doing things in the future, 5 years, that's like, it's not gonna mean shit, Cool, you got your fucking like Hail Marys in the time being, but like, are you doing the energy work to balance your soul self to fucking be a universal fucking citizen? South Node and Virgo, the outdated porn industry, it's not necessarily, it's like roadkill. So I explained the order. I did the keynotes on the fucking planets. And now should I fucking intuitively aspect these things? Maybe tomorrow. You have the best life ever. Rah. I don't know what the fuck. So pretty much, thank you. It was raw, huh? It was too. If it was too raw and rigid, okay.